that the highest king would welcome me. I was lost, but he brought me. Oh, his love for me. Oh, his love for me. Come on, let's sing it out. Who the Son sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. Come on, free at last. Free at last, he has ransomed. His grace ransomed. While I was a slave to sin, Jesus died for me. Yes, he died for me. Who the Son sets free, oh, is free indeed. Oh, I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. Yes. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. Oh, I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. Come on, let's sing it. I'm chosen, and I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am, and you are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. Oh, I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am, and you are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. Oh, I am who you say I am. The Son sets free, oh, it's free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. Oh, I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. In my Father's house, there's a place. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. Yes, we are, Jesus. We're your children, and you love us. Come on, let's sing this to ourselves tonight. Let's remind ourselves. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am, and you are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. Yes, I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am, and you are for me, not against me. I Amen. We sing that song kind of often, but we're actually going to go into a song called Battle Belongs. We did it a couple weeks back in main services, and it just occurred to me, like that bridge that we sing, I am chosen, I'm not forsaken, I am who you say I am. You are for me, you are not against me. Like, those words are so true, you guys. And we think about things that we face at home, we face at school. The only way we can make it through difficult times, the only way we can make it through our struggles is if we truly know our identity. Not in who our friends say that we are, not in what our grades say that we are, or our achievements. Because all of those things, y'all, I hate to break it to you, but they're gonna pass away when you die. They will. But God's given you this life now, and He's given you this identity now. And you, especially us, as Christ followers, we have such a privilege of being able to view ourselves as God's children. And that is why we can face the hard crap. Not because whatever, not because we know how to face it the right way, but because we know who we are in Jesus. We are His kids. We are the children of the ruler and the king of this world. And that is good news, you guys. That is good news. So we're gonna sing this song. It's pretty hype. This transition's gonna be interesting. But are y'all ready? All right, let's do it. We can clap. Yeah. I think it starts here. Okay. When all I see is the battle, oh, you see my victory. When all I see is the mountain, God, you see a mountain moved. And as I walk through the shadow, oh, your love surrounds me. Oh, there's nothing to fear now, for I am safe with you. Come on, let's sing this out tonight. So when I fight, I'll fight on my knees with my hands lifted high. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. And every fear I'll lay at your feet. Yes, I'll sing through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. And if you are for me, who can be against me? For Jesus, there's nothing impossible for you. When all I see are the ashes, oh, you see the beauty. Oh, we thank you, Jesus. When all I see is the cross, God, you see the empty tomb. So when I fight, I'll fight on my knees with my hands lifted high. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. And every fear I lay at your feet. You saw sing through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. Almighty fortress, you go before us. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadows, you win every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. Come on. Almighty fortress, yes, you go before us.
Man, that's a good song. That's a new one for us. It's awesome. I'm glad you're here. Tonight's going to be a great night. I want you to look at your neighbor. Look at one of your neighbors. Choose your favorite one. Just kidding. Ooh, sorry. Say hi. Say, I'm glad you're here. It's good. It's good. It's a good night. Tonight's going to be fun. We're going to talk about some things. I hope you're excited. I hope you've been enjoying the series that we started. And I mean, who doesn't like talking about relationships, right? No, about friends and dating and that girl you like, that boy you like, right? There's so many things, but really at the end of the day, I hope that the conversation that we have here is actually just speaking to you. And that I want you to know that God wants you to know that he is for you in this area, that he cares about every part of your life. And so as we jump in tonight, I do want to pause though and look back over the past couple of weeks. Maybe you missed one, but just remember the foundation that we've established. And so the first thing we did on week 1 is we talked about how singleness is a good thing, right? And so we saw that. And then number 2, last week, we saw that although dating the right way can be a struggle, it's worth it, and God is with you in that struggle. So no matter where you are on the field, he is with you in it. He wants good things for you. And so do not forget these things as we kind of dive in a little more tonight. But ultimately, I'm praying that you see God cares about you so much. And that includes this specific area of your life that sometimes we're like, is God in this? Like, what's going on? But really just because there's 2 foundational truths of being human. And one, it's that we are made for a God that loves us so much. And number 2 is that we are made to be in community. So as we look to God, as we look at others, and we kind of wrestle these questions about dating, tonight is all about the one. Yeah. That special someone that you're thinking about right now whenever I say that. But just when we approach this idea of dating and who to date, things get really chaotic though, because some of you are thinking one thing and some of you are way over here in a different park, and it's just like, okay, what are we doing? But I want us just to think of some of the thoughts that come to our minds when we talk about who to date, right? So some of you, you're just confused, right? You're like, I don't know, man. And so how many of us in this room love Taylor Swift? Perfect. Yeah, Taylor Swift was, did you say boo? No? Whatever. Okay, Taylor Swift was, fun fact, Taylor Swift was my Spotify Artist of the Year last year, and 2 of my top 5 albums. Yeah, and I'm not ashamed. I don't care. I guess I'm a T-Swift fan. Didn't know. But here we are. But I can admit, her songs always hit the same thing, right? It's always about the chaos of relationships. She's like, I love this person. No, I don't. Why would he do that to me? I'm never going to leave. I'm never going to find anyone like him again. No, just kidding. Just shake it off. It's fine. Here we go. Taylor Swift is it's what are you doing? It's confusing. Taylor, pull it together. But I don't know. I believe, but it's just confusing, right? But for some of you, it's not confusion. For some of you, there's anticipation and some excitement. And right now, like I said, you're thinking of someone, right? Or maybe you're sitting next to someone with some potential. I don't know. Maybe not. I'm just saying, it's just what it is. But right now, you're thinking, or you just pulled out your phone. He's like, hey, he's talking about us tonight, babe. He's talking about our love. You should be here. This is going to be amazing. We should have a million sermons about us. Some of you are thinking that right now, and that's fine. But jokes aside, there can be a lot of different thoughts. And some of them are a little serious and maybe even a little negative too. Because for some people, the idea of dating just brings up your stress level, right? You're what is happening? Because dating in high school, in middle school, you see all these things and it's awkward and it's confusing and you're I don't even know what's going on. And it's just we don't even know what we're supposed to do, right? How do I do this? Am I supposed to call someone I'm interested in? Does anyone call anyone anymore? Do I text them? Do I add them on Snap? Is that too informal? Should I say, do you want to hang out? Is that too vague? Should I say, do you want to date? Is that too intense? What do I do, right? And we don't know how to treat each other in that space. But then maybe for some of you, the reality is that there's pain. And relationships equal pain. That's what they mean. Maybe you've seen divorce just tear apart your family, and you're I don't know about that. Or maybe you've had a deep wound from something that she said to you or that he did, and you're how do I reconcile that? But maybe you feel you've had success in other areas of your life, but that doesn't necessarily translate over to relationships because it's just a whole other thing. How many of you have visited Seaside, Oregon? Has anyone? Oh, wow. Okay, so a lot of us. I went a couple years ago with a friend, and they were like real big into telling me, it was like, hey, did you know that when Lewis and Clark went across America, this is where it ended? Did you guys know that? You know what I'm talking about? Like, that's a thing. And so you can go to the spot where Lewis and Clark's like huge expedition to explore America ended. And I mean, even Meriwether Lewis of Lewis and Clark, they went out, they explored America. And when he went back home to the East Coast at that time, he was arguably one of the most famous men in all of America. And when he got back, he had trouble dating. And it's weird because Clark got married right away, his buddy, but he couldn't get married. And he wrote in his journal at one point, he literally wrote this: I have never felt less like a hero than at this present moment. And so for him, that's kind of sad, but for him, traversing on foot across an unmapped continent was easier than figuring out how to date somebody. Okay, so if you're like, Cody, dating's hard. Yeah. It has been for a lot of us. And it's how do we do this? But the word dating and just this idea of who to date conjures up a range of thoughts and emotions from, excitement to confusion to joy and drama or happiness and disappointment. And really, we don't enter into this conversation with a blank slate because we all have thoughts and ideas, or we've seen, pictures or movies or things, and our family and social media, all of this stuff influences it. But even though some of the craziness around dating will always exist, for Americans today, the majority do want to get married. And some of the most reliable studies put it in the high 90% of people are like, yeah, single people, I want to get married. I see the craziness, but I still want to step into that. And so as we think about that, although people are statistically getting married later in life, or they're just not getting married at all, the majority of us will get married. And so I'm just gonna say this: I know marriage, I'm saying that a lot, isn't right around the corner for us, right? I know that that's not a thing. But here's a piece of advice to you. Since we are dating right now, date with purpose and care for the other person, okay? So that's pretty simple, but date with purpose and care for the other person, because I'm not saying only date to get married, never do that. There's just things happening, but marriage is the goal. And that's how God designed it. So you should be intentional in dating someone, and they should be better at the end of that relationship because of you. Okay, so that's just free advice. It is what it is. But one more thing, when we think about and talk about who to date, I want this to be in the back of your mind, okay? Sometimes we can get so focused. Whoa, Siri, you need to chill out. Did you hear her? She's like, hey, say that again. Anyways, sometimes we need to see, when we start thinking about the one, when we start thinking about this person or whatever, I want you to stop thinking about, I need to go find them. I need to go find that person. I need to go do that. And start thinking way more about what are you doing and who are you becoming in that process? So here's how I want to say this. Instead of looking for the one, learn to become the one someone else is looking for. Okay, so although we're looking at who to date tonight, and I want you to think just as much about you, though, in that process. And so, and by the way, the idea of the one, I don't even think that's a real thing. I think that that's not true. Someone that's gonna come complete you and all, that's not biblical, but that's just my opinion. But we so quickly try to find completion and fulfillment and satisfaction in someone else, right? In a person-to-person relationship. And when that person fails you, because they will, we get so discouraged, and it's what do we do now? When really Genesis 1:27 says God created human beings in his own image, and in the image of God he created them. Male and female he created them. And so God created man, and he created woman, and he said these two need to be together. This is how I designed this. And I know that this is a really big conversation, but I want to mention it. He said, here's a man and here's a woman. And when God divinely and perfectly created the universe in Genesis, he made things in pairs, right? We saw, he made the heaven and the earth, right? He made the sun and the moon, and the morning and the evening, and the day and the night, and the sea and the land, and plants and animals. And he made man and he made woman. And none of those things are interchangeable. And so when we talk about relationships, men and women, in marriage especially, but in all areas of relationship, there is a divine fitting and coupling that God created. And so even more in this verse, we see that God literally created man and women. He created us in his own image. And so we go off looking for satisfaction and completement and just fulfillment in other people, when really the creator of everything is just wanting us to look to him and say, I know that you love me more than anything else. And so can I just pause right now and just remind you that there is a God that loves you and understands you and cares about you more than you will ever know, love, or care about yourself. Like that's the basis of what we see relationships come from. But it does go on to say in Genesis 2:18, when God was considering the first man, he said, it is not good for this guy to be alone. It's not good, so I'm gonna make a helper who is just right for him. And although most of us have been taught that this idea is just for marriage, that this is just something for this, the broader principle is that God created us to be in deep, authentic relationships. Every single one of us. And so this idea of it's just me and God isn't enough. You are made for community. And so that leads us into the process of dating and eventually marriage. And hear me as we kind of start. You have to get a relationship with God right before you will ever get a relationship with a guy or girl right. Okay, you have to get a relationship with God right first. And I know what you're thinking, but Cody, if I'm pursuing God all day, if I'm looking at this, like this sounds like a good thing, but like how am I actually gonna go on a date with someone? Like how does that help me in any way? Like what's going on? And there's three things that I want us to look at first. And the first one is find someone who has the same cause as you, okay? So if you're thinking about, okay, I'm gonna wanna date someone in the future, think about who has the same goal as you, who has the same cause. And here's how it works, because ideally, we're following God, right? Like we set our eyes on him in singleness. We saw that we're devoted to Jesus. So we're just gonna chase after God, right? Like we're running after the Lord. And as you do that, as you make that decision, you're gonna see that there's a lot of other people who are running right alongside next to you, right? And they're seeking the same cause. But that also means that some aren't, because a lot of people aren't chasing God. And that means a lot of available, attractive, fun human beings are gonna run right by, and you have to go, okay, but like I'm chasing God, like I know what I'm doing. And so as you chase God, you're gonna see that some people do have that same goal though. So you're just running, and you're gonna look over, and you're gonna see that some of them are gonna become some of your best friends. And you're seeking after the same cause. And you're gonna look over and you're gonna see some of them are gonna be on the same team as you. Some of them are gonna be mentors, people that are older than you that can pour into you. And some of them, you're gonna be running and you're gonna look over and they're cute. And you're gonna be like, oh, okay. Hey, you wanna run next to each other? Like, is this cool? Is this how this works? And so all of a sudden you do that and you run together, and obviously there's more to say in that, but you have to make the decision to follow God first. But you're asking yourself, who am I supposed to run with as I am seeking God? Because if the end goal is marriage and we're running after the same cause, like I said a second ago, if singleness is about devotion to God, dating is about evaluation. Okay, if singleness is about devotion, dating is about evaluation. And so cultures have guided this process differently. Sometimes there's been arranged marriages. Sometimes, families or parents are in charge of that. The church was at one point super involved in that. And now we have modern dating. But dating is not a status we sit in, but a process we move through. Okay, so dating is not something like once you hold that title, you made it. It's just something that we're moving through to get to that end result. And the question you're asking is, am I gripping hands with someone and running into what God has for us? And you're not looking into their eyes to make your soul complete. They're not filling this void that you have in your heart. God is that answer. There's someone else going like, are we running toward the same goal? Okay, that's what dating is about. And so we're asking, how do we meet the right person in the right way? And this is the more difficult thing to ask, but the more important thing to ask too. And so the question I want you to ask yourself again, whenever you're getting to that place, is this person someone I can run with as I chase the purposes of God? That's a who question, right? Like, what kind of person should I be looking for? What kind of qualities should I value? It's a who question. And then you get to the how question, right? Like, what process do I move through? How does this work? Like, we love the how questions. But the who question, what qualities should this person possess, is way more important than the how, okay? Because if you mess up the how and you get to the who, you win, right? Like if you get the right person. But if you're pretty good at the how, but you get the wrong who, in the end, you lose, right? And so it's just an important thing to be asking, okay, who should I date? But how am I finding this person? How do I date the right person in the right way? And so the next step in that process that I would want to share with you is that you need to find someone who has godly character. And that means integrity. Maybe that's another word. And if we're asking this question of, okay, well, who am I dating? Like, how does this work? I want to look at the Bible. And you may be thinking, like, Cody, the Bible does not talk about dating. Okay, and you're kind of right, because the Bible doesn't say anything about, like, modern dating. It's not, you're not reading the Old Testament, and then it's like, oh, yeah, and then Moses took his girlfriend Zipporah unto Chili's, and they got the appetite. Like, there's not that verse, right? Like, we don't see that, but the Bible does say a lot about how to evaluate someone as we are pursuing dating. I mean, we see in the book of Proverbs, it says, it is better to live on the corner of a roof than in a house with a contentious woman. Like, do you think that was written to a married guy? Like, there's some guy, like, hanging on the side of his roof, and he's like, oh, now you tell me? Like, I wish I would have known this a few minutes ago. Like, no, he's just saying, what are you doing? Like, the single guy, I'm speaking to you, evaluate her. Like, is she always arguing with people? Is she, like, always in fights with others? Is drama following her around? Like, is she considerate of people? Like, because I don't know if you want to add that to your life, bro. Like, that's not a good thing. So there would never be peace in your home if that's the type of woman she is. It's saying evaluate her. Or Proverbs 25:28 says, a person without self-control is like a city with broken down walls. Ladies, like, does that guy have a temper? Is he a jerk to other guys or to, like, guys, like, that are younger than him? Does he, like, look down on them? Is he prideful? Like, is he rude to waiters? It's saying, hey, let me tell you something. You're never going to feel safe with that guy. Walls are meant to protect a city, and if this guy's prone to anger and prone to be rude and prone to make all these decisions, don't enter a home with him. Like, don't be in that relationship. You will never feel safe. Like, it is full, the Bible is full of ways of how to evaluate people, and you have to ask yourself before you ever date someone, do we have the same cause? Are we running toward the same goal? And do they have godly character, right? And so it's interesting because the longest chapter in the book of Genesis, the chapter with the most words in it, is about one thing. It's about Abraham finding a wife for his son. Okay, so the book, like, starts off and it's like, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. It flies through creation. We're like, okay, we got that. Like, and then it says, okay, origin of evil, let's breeze right past that. And you get to the story of Abraham going, okay, we need to go find a wife for my son. And it slows way down. And that's interesting because if you think God doesn't care about your desire to date or relationships or any of that, wrong. Like, read the first book he wrote. We see so many things about how this is valuable to him. And it's interesting because in that day, the father, like we mentioned earlier, would lead the charge in finding a wife for his son. And so we see Abraham looks to his servant, and he really gives him one instruction. And this is how the story goes. Abraham said to his servant, the oldest of his household, who had charge of all that he owned, he said, put your hand under my thigh. And that's weird, but it was just an important cultural way to swear by a covenant, okay? So he's like, all right, well, we're doing this. Welcome to church. And so put your hand under my thigh. I will make you swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and the God of earth, that you will not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites among whom I live, but you will go to my country and my relatives and take a wife for my son Isaac. So he says one command. He says, my son cannot marry a Canaanite. And this isn't an ethnic decision. This isn't like a weird thing. He's only saying, like, the people that we live among have no allegiance to God. Like, they have no allegiance to the God that I've been walking with by faith all through Genesis. And he says, I'm a man of faith. We're a family of faith. And so as we're looking for a wife for my son, we need to make sure that we have the same allegiance and run the same way, right? And so because if you think about it, your allegiance determines what you value. And your values choose your goals, and your goals choose your decisions, and your decisions choose a life. And Abraham was saying, okay, if this is the road that we're following, the person that's gonna have the most influence on my son is gonna be his wife. It's gonna be the one that he's in a relationship with. And so he's asking himself, do we have the same goal, and do we have chemistry? Not just does she go to church? Like, that's not gonna be the answer. People can fake stuff all the time. Not just does he say he's a Christian, does he put on that verbiage for you when he's around? No, like, examine their life. Examine their life. Like, are they following and deeply committed to knowing Jesus? It's saying watch their life, evaluate them. But when you see that, when you do see them running after Jesus, when you see them and they are a person of integrity and character, the last thing that we need to see is that we need to find someone who you have chemistry with. Okay, and so that's kind of funny, but like, ask yourself, do we have chemistry? Are they fun? Like, do you get along? Is it easy to talk with them? Do you have things in common? Do you like spending time together? Are they cute? Is this a good thing? Like, that feels like silly, but like it's true, right? And so Christians can be weird at times because I feel like sometimes we sit back and we're like, okay, well, we've been taught to go like, okay, well, do they love the Lord our God and will they love me until death? It's like, yeah, but do they bore you to death? Because like, you don't have to do this. Right? Like, there's a piece in that where it's like God does care about that. But I will say chemistry should be the last thing. And oftentimes in our culture, we lead with that. And it shouldn't be the foundation for someone you date. Like, obviously, it's important to ask yourself, do I like this person? Is this a good thing? All of those questions But just a basis on someone that's a good time, like that doesn't last. And we see that over and over. And as you hang out, I just want to, can I lovingly tell you as like a big brother, don't expedite the physical side of things too fast. Don't do it. It's not worth it. And I think so much of dating and relationships is just hanging out and getting to know, like learning about someone. It's not always physical. And when we do that, when you look at even just statistics of today, it is becoming so increasingly normal for teenagers and really young kids to get so physical so fast. And it's interesting because you do that and you don't even jump into that conversation going to like, do I even like this person? Because what's happening, it's a dangerous thing, is that dopamine, this feel-good kind of chemical thing in your mind is just kicking off. And it's like, I want more of that, whatever that is. And it distorts our ability to discern, is this a good thing? Is this person a right fit? Like, do we actually even enjoy each other? Do we have shared interests? Are we good for each other? And so don't expedite the physical side of things too fast. Chemistry is important, but if you want a healthy, godly foundation for a relationship, you need to ask yourself, are we running after the same cause? Because that's the thing that we're gonna link in the most together. Do they have godly character? And then you ask yourself, okay, do we have chemistry? And that's how that looks. And here's what we're not doing. We're not judging people. Like, that's not our job. We're not finding a soulmate or the one or someone that's just gonna complete you. Like, that's not what we're looking for. You're not looking for a robot or a servant or some fantasy person with characteristics that no one can compare to. Because, like, that's a really good way to order a hamburger or to, like, make a playlist. But we don't get to assemble people. Like, that's God's job. And when we try to twist something together and we try to like really strain some relationship and make it happen and find something outside of what God wants and what's best for you, like, hear me in this, it actually is possible. It really, really is. But it's never going to fulfill you in the same way if you do it with the way that God intended you to do it. And so ask yourself, okay, are we running after a godly cause? Do they have character? And then, do we have chemistry? Those are the things you want to look for as we talk about this idea of, okay, well, one day, who will I date? Or, okay, I'm looking at my boyfriend, I'm looking at my girlfriend. Do they have these things? Those are the things that you want to look for. Those are the things that matter. But remember when we started, as much as you want to find these things in someone else, some of the best thing, and I know for a lot of us in this room, the question we need to ask is, okay, what are we doing so that these types of things are growing in us? How do we set our eyes on Jesus and run to him? How do we build godly character and integrity in our lives so that we're even attracting those types of people, right? Like, these are the important things. And I've heard it said before this way, that the biggest thing God gets out of your life is who you become. It's not who you date. It's not how many times you do the right thing or how many times you do the wrong thing. It's who you become. And so if you hear anything from me tonight, just know that God cares about every single aspect of your life, every single one of them. And I know that we lose track of that, but he cares. He loves you. Hear that God is for you. He knows what's best for you. He has plans for you, but he loves you. And so let's pray together. Jesus, as we talk about dating and relationships and all of these things, God, it can be fun and it can be crazy and it can be scary. But help us to see that you know us and you love us and you have good things for us and you know what you're doing. If we can stand here in this room together and sing how you've saved us, you've saved our souls and our lives from death, and that you are in control of all things, I know you can be in control of our relationships too. I know that you can be sovereign in that. And so, God, you're not gonna abandon us. You're not gonna drop us off and leave us alone, but God, you do have good plans for us and a better future than we could even hope for. And so as we fix our eyes on you, Jesus, would you help us to see that you're the foundation? And maybe tonight as we continue to worship, just help us to kind of set those thoughts aside, all of the things that maybe are in our minds for a second, the stress, the desires. And God, I just want to stand here and say, whatever you want, Jesus, whatever you have for us, we want to know you, God. We want to be with you. We want to hear what you have for us. God, I just want to be in your presence. All of these things are good, but at the end of the day, God, you're the reason that we are here. You're the reason that any of this matters. And so, Jesus, as we worship you tonight, as we look and think and try to build our lives on a godly foundation, looking for you as the goal, running alongside others. Jesus, would you just show us that you're in it with us? So God, we love you and we thank you for this time. Amen.
If you want to come up, you can.
Worthy of every song we could ever sing, worthy of all the praise we could ever bring, worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever sing. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Come on, let's sing it out. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder. Show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. We sing it out. He's worthy. Worthy of every song we could ever sing. Worthy of all the praise we could ever bring. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. You're worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh, we live for you. Come on, let's lift our hands up and sing it out to him. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder. Show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder. Show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. Oh, Jesus, you're the King on the throne of our hearts. It's only you, Jesus. Only you, Jesus. Only you can satisfy, Lord. So we put you in your rightful place today, God. And I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation. I